Okay, here we are. Rotary in Wood Square. Hope you enjoy this. Come on, you. Have to give credit to a lot of other people. We will sort of skip over that. Just in case. But at any rate, there's a whole variety of publications that are available. I think I showed this last time. These three, the two on the left and then the one below, are the Images of America series. These three are on Hudson. Lou Halpert in the back, running the camera, has put these together with the Historical Society. They're mostly photos with some captions, and those are available. The top right, Bicentennial Scrapbook, put out by the Society, and this one here, 1966, should be a familiar date, 50 years ago. Doris Rogers and I think junior high, was that right? Students put that together, and we have some available, I believe. I think we have some, couple. And we are in the process of reprinting Brigham's early Hudson history, the sort of definitive book, really interesting series of articles that were written very late 1800s, 1898, 1900 in through there. Just tons of stuff, sort of the book. These two, I'm not sure there are many available. They're really old, but they've been scanned, as is most everything else here. So there's lots of materials available, point of the story. This series, by the way, there are thousands of these all across the country. Almost every town and place has, if somebody did it. So they're around if you, I don't know, go to Florida in the winter or some foolishness like that. You'll see that there are those books. Okay. I think you saw this map the last time. This is a really old map, 1801, which makes it
a couple of years old.
Couple of years old. 215 if my arithmetic is good. We have this in the Society manuscript. There are none others. We have high quality scan of this. But this, and let's see, I think here is the river. Here is downtown that we're going to be talking about, and we'll just zip through so you can get a feeling. Lincoln Street and Washington Street, that of course now forms Route 85. Main Street going east, Route 62, and Forest Ave. This is an interesting map. This one is from the Marlborough Historical Society, from their website. Appropriately, it's a map of Marlborough, 1835. It's really old, but there's a problem with this map. And some clown drew in a boundary, this line right here, which clearly did not exist in 1835 since there was no Hudson. That's our south boundary. But nevertheless, the importance of this map is, come on you, up here, and an enlargement of that, which again we saw last time because we were talking about the dam and the river. Here is the Assabet flowing up here. It's dammed up. Hog Brook, Tripp's Pond. And you can see a little bit of River Street, Central, Lincoln, Washington Street, and then Main Street heading off east. And this long thing here, Danforth Brook, backed up as Bruce's Pond, and then becomes Tannery Brook, which is on your walking tour. There's a little bit about that. Very familiar names scattered on this map. This is a very old map. An easier one to read, clearly not made in 1853, but shows us where we are, just to help you a little bit here. Here's Felton Street. Pope, begin to see where we are if you've kind of lost your bearings a little bit. South. School. And where are we now? Can you see where we are, or where we will be, or where we are on the map? This building wasn't here yet. There you are. What's interesting and may have thrown you off is there's no Unitarian church yet. This is still Burnham's lot, right here on the corner. The church will be there a little bit later. If we superimpose a modern, that's pretty much what you get. It's just very difficult when you've got old maps to take new stuff and put it on and expect things to line up. They don't. That's why in GIS work they've invented something called rubber sheeting, which is just like you stretch a little bit, you pull it, you squeeze it to make things fit. It's cheating, but I call it rubber bed sheeting, but that's a different term. Okay, zooming in. Here we are. This is clearly Main Street and Washington Street. Here is the dam and the river. We looked at that last time. We're now going to focus up here on what will be the Rotary, but isn't yet. I mean, it's just two roads coming together at an acute angle. But the first store was Wood Store, 1842, 175 years or something. Was there a long time. And we'll see pictures of it. Here, near it, was the large rock, blasted out 1854. And this is all just by verbal description, not because it was on a map. But that's approximately where it was. In fact, we can be a little more definite about that. And there were some hay scales, since there were a lot of farmers in those days. And something here called Tin Pan Alley. Notice there's no road here. But apparently it was where they stored wash tubs and so forth, and kids would come and beat on the tubs, and okay. But you can see what's going to happen much later. Talking about the rock ledge, you might not have thought about this, but if you go up Main Street, past Church, past Pope Street, you start to go up, right? Rather definitely you start to go up. Not hundreds of feet, but it's clearly an incline. Well, the reason for that, this is a map made a long time ago for sewer work, but it helps us here. This is the map view, but this is really what we want to look at. Here's Pope Street. This is a cross-section, as if you cut down in the ground and looked. This actually is the sewer right here, and that's what they were trying to do. But what I did in red is put on the rock ledge that was found when they sampled down. And the rock ledge, there's a vertical exaggeration, isn't quite that, but you get the idea. So here is the rock ledge. And this is why Pope Street, my Main Street, has an incline, because there's bedrock there. And evidently, in the earlier days, that's a little exaggeration, but it protruded through. So they blasted it out, and voila, we have an elevated wood square. Oh, I love this. I hope you can see that. I mean, would you have picked the Rotary if you knew this? Anybody tried to plant in New England soils? You appreciate this. Okay, well, let's look at the town itself. Here we are. Marlborough to the south, our parent town. Berlin, Bolton, and those people over there. And then the snooty folks to the east. But this is what we look like now, but we didn't always look like this. Going to show you a couple pictures. You have to stay awake for this. Where are we? River Street, looking down Port Street. Very close to the town line before you go into Berlin. I'm actually standing in a square so-called. And it's not Wood Square. We're in the front of the fire station, yep. And this is Cox Square. It is called Cox Square because you know the big, and I think it's yellow, the big building on the corner between Lincoln and Central that has a beautiful view down is the Willard Cox house. And actually the Cox name lives on because Aunt Susie Cox bequeathed to the town, the first one to do it, I think 1888, $2,000 for the maintenance of women in dire straits, not paupers, it says right there. And that fund still exists, and there are about 10 of these. That there's trustees of benevolent funds, and I think it's up to about 14,000 now. But nevertheless, okay, you know where it is. Well, that really looks, I guess it's just my angle. Okay, that might be a little less familiar, but you've all been there. Manning and Apsley. Yep. Well, if you can read the sign. Cox and Stratton. Now, if we take those several pictures that you just looked at, and those are the circles. Here's the first one, then Cox Street, Manning and Apsley, and then finally, Cox Street up there. And if we should draw a line through those, I could have picked a number of other pictures along that line. That was the original town line when we separated from Marlborough. Now, when did we become incorporated? This is the 150th, I see 150 from 26. Look at the brochure, 1866. In 1866, that was the town boundary. And by the way, this is Worcester County. Well, that was, right? And we're Middlesex. When we split off in 1866, that was the boundary. Not what you see now. If we back up, that's the land that was Bolton. Come on. About 1.5 miles square. And since we are, we tried to snitch some of Berlin too. We were non-discriminating grabbers of land. We didn't get that, as you probably know. So when you travel River Street to River Road, it gets a little funny. That's why. We're 11.5, that's 1.5 miles, so we gained about 10 or 12% when we took that land from Bolton. And when did we do it? We did not in 1866. It was about 2 years later, in 1868, almost to the day. What other boundary changes for the town have there been? There's one other boundary change.
From Marlborough.
Pardon?
We took land from Marlborough.
Not that I remember. This affects me personally. At Lake Boone, the town line was drawn before the lake, so it ignored the basins and stuff. In 1979, we drew it to go down the lake. And people like Alan Cattell, some of you will remember, was in Stowe. I was in Stowe, and a bunch of us over there, we moved actually from Stowe to Hudson without moving. There was no change because we always went to Hudson schools and paid Hudson taxes. I mean, it was just so it really codified what was long-standing practice. But this sort of thing happens from time to time.
How does that happen?
I'm sorry?
Why does that happen?
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Why does it happen? How did it happen?
Well, the one running down the lake, That's really a good question. I'm not sure, because it didn't change anything. Well, actually, it sort of did, because the people that were over on the Stowe side, but in Hudson, like the Seleucids, they had a place right at Indian Point. They actually moved. So I think they paid to Stowe. I mean, there was some fiddling going on. But, okay, and how much did we pay Bolton for that land?
0.
Oh, no. No. 10 grand. That was kind of a bargain. Okay, moving on. You saw this a moment ago. Let's put some street names up. Central, the short little street, Rice. Lincoln, named, of course, after the president, as was Washington. It was all very patriotic in those days. River, and notice, this is the town bound. Was the town bound, let me put it that way, when we separated off. So you can see, actually, here's the Willard Cox house, all of this stuff, once you get past and start to go up the hill on Central, that all was Bolton. Town line there. Let's get to some fun stuff. This is an incredible picture. The first Decoration Day. Now, this is 1869. How much before then had we invented practical photography? Well, you can argue, but somewhere around the late 1830s, very late. Take 1840. Fortunately, it invented, or unfortunately, because we have that incredible record of the Civil War with those incredible pictures, and that's when it really took off. So this was 30 years after that, and you say, nothing in that picture exists. Obviously, the people are long gone, but all of the buildings and so forth, to help you, we're going to come back to this in a moment because we can say more about this picture.
Go back to that. Why was it so built up only 3 years after the town started?
Because it was built up a lot before then. It isn't that we started the town. You remember that picture of Marlborough when we zoomed in on the not clear picture? There was a lot here. And actually, there's been a lot here since pretty much the early 1800s. It kept adding up, and you'll see some more maps of that. All of these pictures are scanned. They're digital. They're available. So, let me show you what I believe is the view of that from that picture. Now, I have to thank some people. Jimmy Quinn, for one, leading me to Mike Caceres at the Micro Creamery, because this is from the second floor of that building, which did not exist at that time. So we have to kind of guess. I originally tried the Oddfellows building, and it just didn't feel right, because not only are the buildings obviously totally different, but even the road somewhat different. Okay, well, let's go back. The reason we know much about this picture in 1869, it's hard to see, but there are 3 young girls here. In 1935, there was an unsigned article in the newspaper that talked about this picture and some of the people in it, and it had to be one of those girls. But it's a fascinating article. But what they're doing, this is the first Decoration Day, which of course then morphed into Memorial Day. Some parts of the country still call this Decoration Day. Some years back, went to backwoods Pennsylvania, and it was still Decoration Day. But nevertheless, what's happening here is that James Joslin, who is a very famous lawyer setting up things, he set up the language